Welcome everyone to the Watchlist, Australia's newest investor webinar series for ASX listed companies to pitch to real investors and be added to their watch lists. I know each of you carefully curates your own investment watch list. Some of the companies on there you have invested in, and some of the companies are on there just so you can keep an eye on them as a potential investment opportunity. For companies, getting on your watch list is a big deal. It means they are being watched and have the chance for you to invest in them and follow their journey. The Watchlist is a fortnightly webinar that has been designed to offer a broad mix of industry focus and company size to deliver the maximum opportunity for ASX listed companies to tell their story and hopefully make the leap onto a few more investor watch lists. Today, we're bringing some companies who I'm sure are already on your watch list and some you may be considering to add. Presenting today are Forrestania Resources, Global Lithium Resources, and Cooper Metals. Each company will present, then management will be on hand to answer questions you have. So make sure you have questions ready of management and submit them using the Q&A box on the bottom of the screen. Okay, let's get started. Our first presenter is Ian Warland, Managing Director of Cooper Metals, ASX code CPM. Cooper Metals is a new Australian-based mineral exploration company focused on the discovery of copper and gold across three highly prospective projects in Queensland and Western Australia. Ian, over to you.
Thank you very much, David, and thank you very much to Market Open for inviting me to speak at this webinar today. So yes, Cooper Metals is a copper gold explorer, and we're only about 18 months old. We've got two main projects, one in Mount Isa, which is our flagship project, and also a project in WA. So next slide, please. Just a disclaimer onto the next one. So trading at about 16 cents. We've only got 46 million shares on issues. That gives us a market cap of about $7.5 million. At the end of the March quarter, we had $2.6 million left in the bank. We're very tightly held. The top 20 have around 51% of the shares. And Ilwella, who are investors into finance stocks and very astute investors, they have around 5% of Cooper Metals because they like the whole copper story. They like Mount Isa. And so that's a real vote of confidence, we believe, for Cooper Metals and what we're doing. So next slide, please. I won't go into this too much, but just a little bit on copper, of course. You know, it's a critical mineral. The IAG Institute believes that this is the most important critical mineral going forward for clean energy transitions and the whole EV, electric vehicles transition as well. So next slide. So of course, you know, that is leading to a huge supply deficit and a huge price increase, we believe. So we're going to need around double the copper that's getting mined now within 15 years. So Cooper Metals hopes to take advantage on that as copper prices rise. And it also means that a lot more copper or small to medium-sized copper deposits are becoming very profitable with the higher prices, and especially if you can toll treat those. The other thing I believe for the copper market is that when prices go up, you know, you do see some more artisanal miners come into the equation, and companies are really getting asked these days, where are they sourcing their copper from? And sourcing your copper from responsible and from first world countries like Australia is really important for sustainability in the copper market. Next slide. So there's a photograph here. Suspected copper theft causes lengthy train delays in Gawler. So that's in Adelaide. You know, this was just something I lifted out of the paper last week. And it really goes to show you how crazy the copper prices are getting. There's a lot of copper theft going around. And so we really do need to find some more copper to supply that market and stop these train delays. Okay, next slide. So three main projects, the Mount Isa project, of course. It's our flagship project, and the Guru Copper Gold project in WA, which is near Silver Lake's Deflector mine. Next. So starting off with Mount Isa. Mount Isa, you can see on the left-hand side of the screen there is the Mount Isa city, and those tenements in brown are ours. So we've got about 1,600 square kilometres of tenure. So it is a huge area of tenure. and it's all within 30 to 50 kilometres of Mount Isa, which means that we can really take advantage of some of the toll treating options like at Glencore or potentially Ernest Henry or Eloise, to use those operations if we find a small to medium deposit that can be toll treated, which makes the economics for small companies like us a lot more attractive. Now, this whole area around Mount Isa is a well-known copper gold district. It's very prospective. You've got Carnaby Resources shown in yellow there down the bottom of the slide. They've had a lot of recent success, of course, at Nil Desperandum and Mount Hope and Lady Fanny, just to mention a few. And some of our tenements adjoin their Mount Hope tenement as well. So a lot of our tenure does have some old copper gold occurrences in it. So some old historical workings. And many of these have never had a drill hole at all or since the 1990s. So there's a lot of promise and prospectivity in this area. Next slide. Now, last year we spent quite a bit of time on one of these old historical prospects called King Solomon. And King Solomon is an area in the Corella Formation that has about 1.5 kilometre long strike length. And along that strike length, you've got copper gold mineralisation, iron oxide, copper gold style. And there's a series of old pits, shallow pits, and some shafts. And it never had a drill hole in it until we came along last year, started putting some drill holes down into that area. We also did some geophysics, some induced polarization to help us detect the mineralization before we were drilling. And we got a number of significant intercepts there that you can see on the screen, including 19 metres at 1.6% copper and 0.2 grams per tonne gold. And that included some higher grade, narrower zone downhole, like 5 metres at 4.5% copper and up to 0.6 grams per tonne gold there. Now, King Solomon 1, the mineralisation is in 3 plunging chutes along a strike length of about 650 metres, and we've drilled down about 150 metres deep. So next slide. This is a long section through King Solomon 1, and it covers about 650 metres of strike length. The hot coal colours there you can see is an induced polarisation survey. The hotter colours are the high chargeability areas that equate usually to sulfide mineralisation. And the purple polygons you can see there are the outlines of the 3 plunging chutes, and the coloured dots there are the drill intercepts that intersect those plunging chutes. So those plunging chutes are all open at depth, and we are open along strike to the north. So our next step there is to look deeper down. We're planning some diamond drilling here in the near future to get some good structural information on these plunging chutes so we can really understand what the geology is doing there. It's quite a complicated beast, so that the diamond holes will help us understand which way these chutes are really plunging so that we can follow these things much deeper down. Because as you can see, if you follow Carnaby at all, their Mount Hope deposit, for instance, is 600 metres down plus, and it's continuing at depth. So these IOCG deposits can go quite deep, and they can be mined to very deep levels. Next slide. We're building a huge pipeline of targets in our Mount Isa East copper gold projects. And one of the ways we do that is with airborne EM, so VTEM surveys. VTEM is a very rapid way of scanning your tenure for more iron sulfide copper gold rich deposits. So they have a higher amount of sulfide like pyrrhotite or pyrite chalcopyrite in them. We've been lucky enough to do 2 surveys in the area covering over 2,000 line kilometres. So it's a huge area. Just back one slide. It's a huge area. And we were also lucky enough to get funding from the government for about $140,000 for the last survey that we just completed in June. And that June survey identified around 10 VTEM anomalies in the northern part of our tenure, which you can see in that slide there. And it's not far from Aeris Minerals' Barbara deposit, which has about 4.7 million tonnes of mineralisation at 1.6% copper. So we've been ground truthing these VTEM anomalies on the ground to try and find out exactly what is giving that anomaly, because it can be due to sulfide mineralization or other things like graphite and black shales, etc. Next slide. Now, so up in the northern part of the area on the EPM 28087, we went to 10 VTEM anomalies up there just in the last few weeks, and we found that at least 3 of those look very, very promising and prospective. So they've got anomalous copper and gold associated with them in rock chips. And so therefore we got the geophysicists to look at these VTEM anomalies in a bit more detail. And you can see those red polygons there in plan. They're plate models that the geophysicist has modelled up, and that gives us robust drill targets there. So we've got a robust drill target at least 3 of those anomalies. And what I really like about them is that they're in structural positions, like on the contact between the Corella Formation and dolerite rocks there, where we get some shearing and anomalous copper gold. So we'll be testing those later in the year with some shallow RC drilling to see if it's due to copper gold mineralization. Next slide. We've also been checking some other VTEM, GChem anomalies as part of that same program in the last few weeks. And one of the more exciting of these anomalies that came up was the new Raven prospect. So it was a VTEM anomaly. Really, first prize when you get a VTEM anomaly is that when you go to the ground, you want to see evidence of copper gold mineralization if that's possible. So sometimes these things are buried a bit deeper down, and so you won't see anything at surface, but sometimes you do. And so at the Raven prospect, there is a copper gold rich gossan, and we got some rock chips up to 26.7% copper and 2.49 grams per tonne gold. So we're really excited about this new Raven prospect. There's a VTEM response. There's coincident copper gold mineralization at surface. We're just doing some more mapping and geochemical sampling over Raven right now so that we can get an idea of the scale potential. And then we'll be doing some RC drilling there as soon as we get the regulatory approvals approved, basically. A number of other prospects we've looked at as part of that same survey, the Costine and SW historical workings, that they form an area of mineralization dotting around 1.1 kilometres of strike length there. So we're currently doing some mapping and sampling of that to ascertain what the potential size is. Next slide. On our Ardmore tenement, which adjoins Carnaby's Mount Hope tenement, we've just recently finished an independent consultant's review of that tenure. And what we did there is that we were looking at the detailed magnetics, which was done in the last decade by a previous explorer, done at about 100-metre line spacing, which is very detailed. And the magnetics can really give you a reasonable idea where potential structural trap sites are for copper gold mineralization. So this independent consultant has helped us delineate around 11 areas, which you can see on your screen there. And we've been out to a few of those already, which do have some high-grade rock chips associated with them. So we're currently doing mapping and sampling again to get those drill ready. Look, we recently did some RC drilling at Ardmore South over our IP and coincident geochem anomalies there. And the positives that really came out of that survey was that it shows it is a very fertile area. There was pyrite-dominated sulfides, but broad areas of copper anomalism. So we know that the mineralization fluids have been working in the area. What we really need to do now is find those really discrete structural trap sites that hold a higher concentration or economic concentrations of copper and gold mineralization. So the work is ongoing there as well. Next slide. So just to reiterate lastly on Mount Isa East copper gold, we have numerous prospects to follow up and numerous targets, over 50 targets, and we're systematically working our way through these targets. We're intending to do around 5 metres of RC drilling during this field season to test a number of these targets, which are all quite shallow. And we'll put 2 or 3 holes into each target. if, depending on results, we can expand those programs. So we're systematically working our way through, and it's an exciting time. Next slide. Just briefly on environment, social governance, very important to work with all your stakeholders in the area. We've got a lot of landowners and pastoralists that we work for, that we have to work hard to keep the risks down from weed infestations, etc. We need to rehabilitate our drill holes and keep our exploration practices as low impact as possible. We're engaging with the local Indigenous there, the Kalkadoon people. We often employ Indigenous people, providing local employment in the area. And Cooper spent over $2 million in the local area just last year alone. So we take ESG very, very seriously. Next slide. So just briefly on our Guru Copper Gold project in WA. So it's not far from Silver Lake's Deflector mine, which has over 1.2 million ounces of gold. We recently picked up another tenement in that area. There's been very little exploration along this part of the greenstone belt, which is the Gulliver greenstone belt. We know it's mineralized terrain. We know there's mines in the area, so there's potential infrastructure to piggyback off. We've already done some soil geochemistry in the area and identified a number of gold anomalies. Next slide. So there's at least 5 gold anomalies that we've found, and the next step here really is to do some air core drilling to test some of our robust targets, and we'll be doing that later in this year as well. So this is a real greenfields play, but it is a known mineralized terrain. I think it's a really exciting area to look for copper and gold mineralization. Next. So really, lastly, I've raced through that pretty quickly, but the key takeaways are that Mount Isa East, the new government partially funded VTEM survey, has identified numerous targets, 3 of which are robust drill targets. The new Raven prospect with the coincident VTEM and geochem is also very exciting. But we have over 50 copper gold targets in our large Mount Isa East copper gold project. So we'll be systematically testing and drill testing those throughout this year. We've got significant soil gold and soil anomalies at our Guru project as well. And look, we have a very modest market cap, only around $7.5 million, a very tightly held share structure. So any success that we have will really translate to a positive share price increase. And thanks for your time.
Thanks, Ian. A great presentation. Just to remind everyone, if you do have a question, just submit it using the Q&A button on the bottom of the screen, and we'll put those to the presenters at the end of their presentations. So a couple of questions that have come through, Ian. Relatively young company in well-known jurisdictions. I'm always fascinated. How do you get your hands on such prospective ground?
Well, we had a clear strategy. So in 2021, I was working with some like-minded people that were looking in the copper gold space, because we think especially copper with the critical minerals is extremely important, and we only see prices rising there. And we wanted to work in areas where there were known mineralized terrains, potentially close to infrastructure, and that we believed was underexplored from modern technologies. So that sort of, when you look around Australia, Mount Isa really stands out in those sorts of 3 criteria. But Mount Isa's been, this part of Mount Isa, the Mary Kathleen domain, I believe has been overlooked for decades, as people were looking more towards Cloncurry, around Ernest Henry, Eloise, etc., for the very large IOCGs. But a lot of these historical workings had been really overlooked closer to Mount Isa. So people had taken their eye off the ball there. We had some people that we were working with, some project generators, and we're able to get a large tenement holding there a couple of years ago at what I believe was a very, very reasonable prices, which is why we've been able to keep our shareholding quite tight. And and pick up this great ground. And then not long after we floated, Carnaby had their discoveries, and so then the whole place has got re-rated since then, which is exactly what we're trying to emulate, is that if we go back and look at some of these old historical targets, start actually doing the work and the drilling under them, there could be some substantial mineralisation there.
With Mount Ida East, why do you think there was limited historical drilling given the rich exploration in the region?
Yeah, that's interesting. Look, a lot of these tenure areas were held by the very large companies, MIM, Xstrata. They had very high copper targets, so 1 million tonnes of contained copper, for instance, or 2 million tonnes of contained copper. So world-class deposits, which is a great aspirational target to have. And they believe that the Merrick-Kathleen domain may not have targets that big, but there are targets that big in the area. And even if you can get a smaller deposit, 100,000 tonnes of contained copper, it's still going to be worth a huge amount of money. And in this day and age, with copper prices where they are and that huge need for copper, a lot of these smaller or medium-term deposits have become a lot more economic. So I think just with the passing of time, just the whole place has been re-rated and looking a lot more economically viable.
How important is technology in unlocking these mineralisation zones? Obviously, the advancement in technology, VTEM surveys and the like, just give you a greater look at what potentially is there.
Well, look, there's no doubt that our toolbox of tools has got so much better over the years. So yeah, VTEM is great for looking for ISCGs. It's not a magic bullet, like it will find what we call false positives. So you can find an anomaly that might be due to something else other than copper gold mineralization. So you've still got to do the hard work on the ground to test these things. Induced polarization, like all geophysical, I guess, technologies have got so much more powerful in the last 30 years, and that's really aiding exploration. But again, they can get you in the right spot, but you really have to do the drilling and the boots on ground work to test these things systematically. So that's what we're doing. We're generating robust targets with the modern geophysics, with modern geochemistry, but then you still just need to get out there and do that drilling to see how big these things are. So it really has helped a lot, but there's still a lot of hard work involved, and we've managed to put a lot of money in the ground. We've got a low cash burn rate, and we try and funnel as much as that into the on boots ground exploration.
Now, a longer question's come through, so I'm just going to read it as is. It says, hi, Ian. If you've got 11 targets at Ardmore South that you're working through to prioritise, did you say you had RC permits ready to go? And when do you hope for the first bit to start spinning?
Yeah, so we do have some RC permits ready to go, and we're planning to be drilling in August, so later in August. That's the plan. So we're working through the logistical issues there. So we've our new approach is, because we've got numerous targets, is we want to test like a cluster of targets in a particular area with the RC drill rig. So if you can get 3, 4, 5 targets in the same sort of geographical area, and then rapidly test those targets with the RC drill rig, and then move on to the next cluster, in the coming weeks after that. So we hope to be spinning those. We hope to be spinning that bit in August, and we're working hard towards that right now.
Well, a great question to finish on. Investors love exploration, and they love a company that is clearly leveraged to exploration success. So we wish you every success over the coming months as you progress those plans, Ian. Thanks for your time.
Well, thanks, David. It's been a real pleasure.
Great. Well, next up, we have Michael Anderson, Managing Director of Forrestania Resources, ASX code FRS, don't want to get that wrong. Forrestania is exploring for gold, lithium and nickel in the eastern goldfields of Western Australia and also in Canada. Michael, over to you.
Thanks, David, and thanks again to the organisers, Watchlist Market Open, for the opportunity to present the Forrestania story. So Some similarities with Ian and his company, a relatively young listing, just shy of 2 years, and very focused now in across a portfolio of projects that we've recently expanded to have 3 fronts, 2 in WA and 1 in Canada. Next slide, please. Again, I use the disclaimer. So our strategy has very much been to get on the front foot here, very proactive, to explore and do justice to the tenements that we had at listing, which was the namesake Forrestania project. But we've also got our collaborative joint venture in Canada now, and I think very excited about having a foot in another high-profile lithium exploration jurisdiction in James Bay. And we also did add to our portfolio with a very strategic option agreement in the Eastern Goldfields. Right, back to Forrestania for a moment. That's a well-known area, mainly for nickel, but the most recent high-profile discovery, if you like, there has been the Kidman project, the Earl Grey pegmatite, now a joint venture covalent between Wesfarmers and Sucklymich. That's a world-class deposit. So that's what attracted this company to get a foothold into that region, predominantly with a lithium focus, but knowing about some of that historical nickel and indeed gold prospectivity. James Bay, as I say, a number of our peers have made their way over there in recent times, I guess buoyed by the success of the likes of Patriot Battery Metals and Winsome and Alchem, who are already mining there. And so, we know we're in the right areas at all of these projects. The geology's right. The prospectivity is real. The geochemistry tells us that. But we've got a lot of work in front of us to do justice to that. And a key word that I heard Ian use a lot was systematic. And that's how we intend to explore all of these projects, to be systematic in everything we do the right things for the right regions in what we know to be the right areas. We will continue to pursue partnerships that add value. We've shown our willingness to collaborate and indeed to consolidate and optimize our land holding, and we'll continue to do that, very much with the intent to not stand still, to really do justice and again, to put that money into these key targets. Next slide, please. So a closer look at the portfolio in Forrestania in particular, and you'll see that we do sit alongside the Mount Hollands project up in the north there. And then as you come down, we straddle the ground that was Western Areas, now owned by IGO, around what Western Areas were mining at Flying Fox, Spotted Quoll, etc. So there is a lot of historical nickel exploration that has been done here. And very interestingly, when you go back and look at the drill logs, a lot of them contain pegmatite, and in many cases, not even analyzed for lithium. Albeit that in more recent times, Western Areas did drill some interesting holes, and we'll talk about those in a moment. So we do have some near neighbours who I guess you'd describe as major mining houses in their own right. So IGO are there and now have their own focus on lithium. Covalent are progressing the Earl Grey project to construction and commissioning. 189 million tons at 1.5%. That is truly world class, and we know we're in a lithium bearing system or in the proximity. And a lot of the work that we're doing, starting systematically with soils, is benefiting greatly from our team and the experience that they have. So Melissa McClelland, our lithium exploration manager, worked for a number of years on the Kidman team, and so has a knowledge of what these deposits look like, the signatures that they come with, both geochemically and then in drilling. And so we're using that targeting methodology, if you like, to drive our own programs. And I've already had a significant degree of success, but plenty of work to do ahead of us along that 100 kilometers of strike length along this highly prospective greenstone. Next slide, please. So just focusing in on some of the targets that we have been drilling, and the more recent work has, as I say, straddled that IGO ground there, and you can see that in a hole that was drilled back, I think in the maybe 2016, 2017. Western area is intersected 50 odd meters at 0.95, and we're just a couple of kilometers away from that at Calypso, and probably less than a kilometer away from that at South Iron Cap East. And those are the results that we put out quite recently of some visuals. Multiple pegmatite intersections, stacked pegmatites at Calypso up to 60 odd meters thick. And then very importantly, the last announcement we made was news of visible spodumene in the drill chips at South Iron Cap East. So again, we know we're in a system that can deliver lithium mineralization here, notwithstanding that not every pegmatite is mineralized. But we're working through, and very much, as I say, enjoying the experience and the knowledge that Melissa brings to I guess define our targeting and to follow up on the results that we're delivering and narrow down those target areas. Again, much as Ian was saying, we genuinely believe we're highly leveraged to the exploration success, and that'll mean that we do end up with some ore grade mineralization. Next slide, please. We already have, seen the benefit of that historical drilling. So when we went to Calypso, there was an air core program that we knew had been drilled probably again 20 years ago, multiple pegmatites. So it's no surprise that we find pegmatites of our own and many of them. So I think 13 of our 14 holes find stacked pegmatites, say up to 60 odd meters thick. We're eagerly awaiting those assays. And I guess to be clear though, this was the maiden program that we've done at Calypso. So finding pegmatite is a success. Whether it delivers the ore grade mineralization that we're looking for remains to be seen. But whether it does or doesn't, it's not the end of the story. We've got plenty of work and plenty of opportunity still to do justice to ahead of us here. But it was a very promising start. And we'll await those results, but do have holes planned to follow up on the program, hopefully in this coming quarter. Next slide, please. So the visible spodumene at South Iron Cap gave us even more encouragement, and that is as I say, just a kilometre or so from where Western Area is drilled the 50 odd meters, and again, soil geochemistry was the starting point here. A little bit of pegmatite outcrop. You don't see huge outcrop in this area, but clearly we're following up on the groundwork, sampling, mapping, and the geochem. But what more encouragement do you need than visible spodumene? So awaiting those results again here, and we'll have further programs planned off of the back of the most recent work. Next slide, please. Giant is where we did some drilling earlier in the year, and that's probably closer to Earl Grey up in the north, where we have multiple soil anomalism that needs doing justice. But we were following up on a historical hole there, 30 odd meters at 3%, and turns out that there probably was a hole that more followed the pegmatite down dip, and our drilling has proven maybe a true width of 5 to 10 meters. So 10 meters of our own at 1.5%, including a couple of meters at 2.6. Again, we know we're in the right areas, finding very encouraging results here. We have drilled along strike at Giant. The pegmatite does look continuous across the breadth of the tenement package, and we again await those results. But again, very, very high levels of optimism about the ongoing prospectivity of that area. Next slide, please. So moving away from Forrestania, which is easily our most advanced project, when I took on this role probably about 4 or 5 months ago, I was reading about almost a deal a week that was being done by our lithium exploration peers, ASX listed, putting foot into the James Bay region. And they were doing it through option agreements, which we had a look at some of those ourselves. But I must say, having now consummated this joint venture with ALX, I'm very glad that we've gone about it in that manner. So ALX are a junior listed on the TSX, highly experienced company with a number of different projects. But it was this hydro project in the James Bay region that attracted us, and where they were quite openly accepting of a partnership. So we are now already 50-50, having come up with our consideration of cash and shares of about $1 million to achieve that. And we now have 8 separate projects in front of us. You see them there listed: Cobra, Viper, Echo, Sprite, Knight, Volta, and Python East and West. These are greenfields projects, but they're absolutely in the right areas. Again, we're proximal to Corvettes, the Patriot Battery Metals deposit, close to Q2 MEA over in the west there. And whilst they're greenfields, we know there's greenstone geology here. There are some pegmatite outcrops that have already been mapped, but it's early days. These are greenfields projects with work ahead of us. Now, work was originally due to start in late May. It did get underway, but after only a couple of days. I'm sure people have been aware of the forest fire situation over there. It does seem to be abating now. So we have, taken a bit of a time out, which has been, I guess, a highlight for me of the joint venture arrangement, because ALX, our partner, has been very ably, rejigging our plans over there, working through the logistics. I'm very grateful of their support in doing that. A lot easier to organize from on the ground in Canada than it would be from West Perth. But we will get started again in the coming days, and look, still plenty of time ahead of us in this field season to get underway with some boots on the ground. And highlight here is that there are high levels of outcrop, not just as accessible perhaps, but you can walk up and identify the geology that you're stood on. And as I say, we already are aware of multiple pegmatite outcrops, and it's those that we'll focus in on with this initial round of mapping and sampling to hopefully generate our first round of drill targets. Next slide, please. Just homing in there on I guess a couple of the specific projects. So Volta on the left there, we are coincident or adjacent rather to Corvette's project. And whilst not showing greenstone outcrop, we know that there is greenstone geology and indeed outcropping pegmatites on the Volta tenement. Cobra and Viper haven't actually had much work on the ground yet, but again, we're in and around known mineralization at MEA's Q2 Metals MEA project. So got a pretty extensive footprint of greenstone on both of those projects. So it's a bit mouth-watering to think about what lies ahead on these projects, and we look forward to the first round of results from each of them. Next slide, please. In the Eastern Goldfields, so we're talking about the Leonora, Coolgardie regions here. We had some tenements as part of our initial package at IPO, but if you look at the plan map in the center here, you'll see that there's a couple of tenements outlined in blue, but notably that swathe of green, which is the greenstone belt running through the middle. We had a sliver of it up in the northwest there, what we call the Bellarkey prospect, where we had seen pegmatite. But these two tenements became available to option up, and our team again was very proactive. Got to give a lot of credit to Ashley Bennett here, who worked tirelessly to secure this deal. And we've been doing some mapping and sampling on the ground, and I've already identified multiple pegmatite outcrops. There's been little or no historical drilling for lithium in this region. Again, probably more focused for gold in the past and a bit of copper. But we are not that far away from companies like Delta and Future Battery Metals who are actively drilling and are finding, again, ore-grade lithium. So this is another greenfields opportunity, but yet again, right in the heart of the right geology, pegmatites outcropping and all the right encouragement. We've done some sampling, again, waiting for the results of that, but confident that we'll be able to work up some targets for a maiden drill program in the very near future. Thanks. Next slide, please. We'll just touch on this. It's not the lithium focus, but back in February, we did do some sampling up at Melita, which is just to the north of where we've been talking about. And we did get some very high rare earth results, highly anomalous, in fact. And when I look around at others who are exploring and the sorts of grades that are exciting them, I think there's equal cause for excitement at Melita. So planning some air core drilling here once we get heritage approval squared away, and hopefully we'll be in a position to do that. And like any exploration company, while we have a very strong focus on lithium, we're not going to ignore the prospectivity of other metals or other commodities. And so this is definitely meritorious in terms of our attention over the next short while. So that's another string to our bow. Bit of a wild card in some respects, but I think just as lithium has a great future going forward, so does rare earths. So won't turn our nose up at such anomalism. Next slide, please. So wrapping up in terms of what we believe Forrestania provides as an investment proposition, very focused on trying to add value through the three-pronged approach of exploration, collaboration, and acquisition, and now have an extensive pipeline of targets for lithium, predominantly in WA. I'm sure gold will come back into fashion again soon. It's hard to ignore the high prices that we've got, but for now, I think we'll give the lithium a real crack, both in WA and indeed in Quebec. And that joint venture deal that we've consummated, I don't expect that to be the last thing that we do over there. We're very keen to get our own boots on the ground and understand that space and what might be available over there to add to our portfolio. But first things first, let's get underway with the Hydra project and do that justice. I think the collaboration has been a good way for us to go. We are a junior company. Again, like Ian was saying, modest market cap of around $12 million, about 100 million shares on issue. So, still plenty of opportunity ahead of us. Highly leveraged the exploration success and determined to get on that front foot, be proactive, and not be afraid to turn our projects over. We will follow up the good results and continue to test our targets. But in the event that we don't find what we're looking for, not shy to move on and to expand and to optimize the portfolio going forward and to not stand still. And I think again, a lot of money going in the ground here, and that will continue to be the case. So hope to keep people amply informed with the news flow that will unfold in the coming months. Thanks for your time and attention.
Thanks, Michael. And certainly, given I've known you a long time and you definitely do not stand still. So look forward to that motto being enhanced through Forrestania Resources. So a number of questions have come through. So how did you secure the WA leases, given their proximity to known high-grade deposits?
So look, that was before my time, but those who know our board, John Hannaford and David Izzard, worked together under the banner of Rockford Partners, and have seeded and gestated a number of junior companies, and so all credit to them. It was a competitive situation, and I guess they put their hand up, iron in the fire, as it were, and did secure the package. And then obviously we've enhanced things as we've gone forward, and there are indeed a number of opportunities. It's always reasonably dynamic, in active spaces like WA. People come and go. People also change their focus. So, we are aware of other tenements up in the region where the lithium rights might be available, and/or just the full-blown tenements themselves. And so we're constantly looking at how to enhance that. But in the first instance, all credit to John and Dave for securing that as part of the initial IPO.
Similar vein, how did you come across ALX and what drew you to entering this JV?
So when I took on the role in March, I think it was, John was already engaged in talking to a couple of potential vendors of projects in James Bay, and I guess I like the concept of expanding our portfolio into, as I say, what is another world-class lithium jurisdiction. So from a very standing start, almost sort of really just looked at what was going on over there, and there was a raft, as I say, of other option deals being done. A number of junior Aussie companies had announced such transactions, and we followed our nose and looked at who they were dealing with, who the vendors were, and sort of put our hand up as to say, well, we're looking here. And, it's interesting. All sorts of opportunities came across our desk through the inquiries that we were making. And we got talking to a couple of key individuals over in this James Bay region. One guy by the name of Jody Darouge, who I know has had a fair bit to do with Corvette and Patriot. And he, in fact, has been on the board of ALX. So he encouraged us to talk to their management, which we did. And it was interesting because, if you like, the pivotal moment for me was when talking to their chairman, Warren Stanier. He said, look, we don't want to vend these projects. We've only just staked them. And we're pretty excited by them. He says, so, we don't want to vend, but we'd be interested in a partnership. And all of a sudden, that started to make a lot of sense to both of us, because when you're dealing with a vendor, they want to sell you something. You got a staged option payment scheme, if you like. But then you got to fund that work yourself. You also have to arrange it logistically and the like. And so, the attraction for us was having a partner on the ground who knew the area, who was able to manage the work and set it up. But he also had the confidence and the belief in the tenements that they wanted to stay involved. So they weren't just saying, "Here you go, you're on your own." So look, it came about very quickly, and I guess you got to trust your gut sometimes in these. I've been over to Canada. I've met Warren now, lovely bloke, and I'm sure they're going to be a very good partner for us as we go forward. And as I say, I think that the structure and the nature of that transaction we're happy with, we're comfortable with, and it's already shown its worth through this tough start that we've all had in through the forest fire season. But look, I think when I looked at all those other option deals, the ground that was on offer was no more advanced than what we're dealing with here. There's a lot of greenfields tenure. It's quite a young lithium exploration space, if you know what I mean. So a lot of opportunity ahead of us and our peers over there. And so it'll be a pretty exciting space to watch over the coming seasons.
Well, just on that, partnerships and JVs seem to be a key strategic path you and the board are taking to secure projects and project interests. Why is that?
Well, I think it's every opportunity is somewhat unique. And as I say, we've I think landed on a structure that suits us for Canada. We are still very much doing our own thing on our 100% owned projects in WA. There might well be joint venture opportunities down the track as things unfold and as we put a bit more meat on the bone. But I think the value proposition for us in WA is to do justice to that discovery potential ourselves, and then maybe sit back and reflect what might make sense in terms of collaboration or partnerships. I guess you just got to keep open-minded, and if a deal adds value, adds opportunity, which is what exploration is all about. Maximizing your opportunity. Giving yourself more chances, more bites the cherry, as it were. We'll be prepared to consider any type of deal structure, not necessarily going in with any preconceived ideas, but I guess so far the highest profile thing we has done being joint venture, but doesn't rule out acquisition. But we got to manage the things within our own means and opportunity.
Well, exciting times ahead for Forrestania Resources, stock code FRS. Michael, thanks for your time.
Thanks, David.
I'd now like to introduce Ron Mitchell, Managing Director of Global Lithium Resources, ASX code GL1. Global Lithium is a rapidly growing lithium exploration company with a focus on two highly prospective, 100% owned West Australian projects, the Manna Lithium Project in the Goldfields region and the Marble Bar Lithium Project in the Pilbara region of Western Australia. Ron, over to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, David, and thanks for your listeners for joining. Great privilege to be able to talk and provide a bit of an update on our two projects. Quite uniquely positioned, we feel, given we've got one project that's clearly under development now, and we're making great progress in fast-tracking that project through a DFS and a very extensive metallurgical test program. But we've got significant exploration upside ahead with a 50,000 metre campaign soon to kick off. So we're really thrilled with the progress we've made this year, and this is a great opportunity to provide an update across both of our projects. So moving on to the next slide. Standard disclosure, I'll let you read that at your leisure. So this is really the company on the page, our strategic highlights and why invest. Again, multi-asset, that gives us great optionality from a development perspective. We're not a company that doesn't have a resource. We've got a 50 million tonne resource currently across both of our projects here in Western Australia. Great locations to be mining and developing a mine here in Western Australia. We've got great access to infrastructure and skilled workers. Our first project up in Marble Bar in the Pilbara, and our second project out east of Kalgoorlie, and that's the project, our flagship project, in fact, that we're fast tracking through to development. So great starting position in terms of a resource, but clearly some quite significant upside ahead across both of our projects. Being both JORC compliant, two of only 14. I mean, it's really hard to get a JORC compliant lithium resource. There's only 14 in Australia. And we own two of those wholly. If you think about most of the other resources, they are operated under joint ventures. Great jurisdiction, as I mentioned earlier. And I'll talk a little bit about the infrastructure piece that we've got at our disposal, because it's absolutely crucial. I think there's been some impressive discoveries on paper made in recent times in other jurisdictions, but really, as far as I'm concerned, a number of those assets will remain stranded for the foreseeable future because of our infrastructure piece. We've got sealed roads and rail adjacent to both of our project sites, and that was really core for us in terms of developing our projects, because it's one thing, as your listeners will know, to have a great asset, but it's another thing entirely to have the infrastructure to be able to bring that asset to market. We do have a couple of really important strategic partners on our register as strategics. Canmax is not a well-known name here in Australia, but certainly in China they're a heavyweight. They control around 110,000 tonnes of lithium hydroxide conversion capacity based on spodumene feedstock. Very well diversified in China, and they're supplying all the major battery companies, including, of course, CATL. And Mineral Resources as well has a 9.7% stake in the company. So importantly, we're really well funded. We've got 67 odd million in the bank as of the end of May. So we're fully funded through to FID. So that allows us to develop our projects with confidence. We've got a really strong team, across lithium and battery metals. I've been in the sector more than 13 years. I'm also leading the LME Lithium and Cobalt Committee. I've been in that role for more than 3.5 years now. And that's given me great access to really the downstream lithium industry. And we've got quite significant interest in our company from an offtake position. And it's not just the exec and the board, but we've got a great composite, a great spread of talent through approvals, project development, exploration, of course, commercial finance. Next slide. So just sort of a corporate snapshot. This is slightly dated. This is as of the middle of June. Tightly held register, 257 million shares on issue. We've got, as I said, 67 million in the bank as of May. The register itself, about 20% taking up with Mineral Resources and Canmax as the two core strategics. There's some high net worth individuals, board and management about 4.5%, and balances retail and insto. The institutional part of the register is about 15%. And that was really on the back of a raise we made the back end of last year to acquire our Manor project wholly. And there's a couple of companies covering the stock as well through non-paid means. Next. Look, I'll skip through this section in the interest of time, just to say that really, there's no turning back to internal combustion engine technology. Most of the global OEMs are now fully committed to electrification. Just some hard statistics here in terms of what's happening in China. We recently sent a team into China, one of the few lithium companies that's actually dispatched a technical delegation into China to really get the latest intel on opportunities there around partnering, of course. We've got a near-term DSO potential partnership opportunity, but also to understand the market and what's happening in China. Obviously, with COVID, things have been shut down for a number of years, but things are starting to open up, and those buyers, at least in China, are looking to adopt, and we've seen EV adoption increase quite significantly, certainly above and beyond my expectations. Next. I'll flip through this one next, please. So our team did visit China. We visited a number of DSO operations. Our project director, Tony Chamberlain, was supported by our senior business analyst and also Simon O'Leary, who's the process manager at Wave International, who's supporting our DFS and our metallurgical test program. So we had a great opportunity to meet with partners, current partners, and also to explore some opportunities, technical collaboration opportunities with some other players. I mean, there's a lot happening in China. They are still the leaders in terms of technical expertise around lithium processing and even beneficiation. They've been doing some incredible things there with some of the advanced flotation agents they're using for spodumene beneficiation. So we think there's some opportunities for us to use some of this technology as we develop our own project at Mana. Next, please. So let's have a chat about Mana. So this is, in my opinion, one of the mines of the future. It's an outcropping spodumene-bearing pegmatite. We've got some really significant intercepts, sort of plus 20-metre intercepts. An existing resource of close to 33 million tonnes. We are soon to announce an upgrade to that resource on the back of some assays which came in late last year, which have now been reworked into the resource model. And of course, the upside for us is significant. We've got a 50,000-metre campaign, which is soon to kick off. And a great place to be mining, as I said. We're only 100-odd kilometres due east of Kalgoorlie, and there's some great talent that we can draw on from that phenomenal mining town. So we do have a lot of experience. We've got great infrastructure. This slide doesn't show it, but there is a rail siding just to the south of the project, about 13 kilometres to the south of the project, and we'll look to use that infrastructure to get our ore and our concentrate to market. Next, please. So this is where the upside is coming. You know, bear in mind, we're a young company as well. We've only been listed on the ASX 2 years, and last year was our first really meaningful exploration campaign on the asset. We completed sort of 45,000 odd metres of RC and diamond drilling, and that culminated in a 33 million tonne resource, which we announced in December of last year. But importantly, this resource is open at depth and also along strike, particularly to that northeast. There's a significant additional zone to that northeast, which will be the focus of our exploration drilling this year. There's also some targets to the southwest of the existing ore body as well. So it'll be a big campaign, but the team's gearing up for it. We're just wrapping up heritage surveys in the next week or two, and we'll have the drill rig spinning the middle of August. And it's a big campaign, as I said. Up to 5-6 drill rigs will be on site as part of this campaign. So our team is out at Mana at the moment, bolstering up the exploration camp as well, because with 5 or 6 rigs on site, as you can imagine, there's a little bit of preparation ahead of that drill campaign. But our team is really excited about this and what it means in terms of growing this resource, because, as I said, there's some significant tonnes to come in our expectation. Next, please. So this sort of talks a little bit about some of the work that we've done first half of this year. Obviously, we're now the owner of the tenement. Previously, it was a joint venture arrangement. We owned 80% of the lithium rights. We acquired 100% ownership of the asset late last year, acquired the outstanding 20% off Breaker Resources. And with that, we increased the project tenancy about 5x. And now we're the tenement owner. We've gone through the front door in terms of our engagement with traditional owners. We've had some great success working with the TOs. They're a wonderful group, the Gagara people, and we're now formally engaged in native title agreements as well. And we're hoping to have those concluded by the end of the year. But we have done a significant amount of geochemical, geophysical work whilst we're getting ready for our exploration campaign this year, and that's really given us great. Identified some very clear targets. Firstly, pegmatite lithium targets, but we've also discovered some other really important critical minerals on this project tenancy, which we've announced recently as well. Next, please. We have submitted a mining lease application. This mining lease application 28414 was lodged with DEMIRS in April of this year. And bear in mind, not many companies get to submit a mining lease. This covers a very significant land package, about 2,400 hectares in total. And it's really important on all the related infrastructure as well. And you can see the diagram on the right there. That image shows you what we're looking to do in terms of the concentrate, providing the concentrate to the rail siding at Coroni to the south, 13 kilometres to the south. And then we'll look to move that material. We've got multiple logistics options. We've obviously got Esperance to the south, and we've also got Kwinana, the port of Kwinana out to the west of the project. There's a significant amount of technical de-risking work streams that are ongoing. Metallurgical test programs in full swing. And obviously we've had some very successful initial work undertaken with regards to ore sorting, and our ore body is incredibly amenable to ore sorting. So a lot happening. Next slide, please. I talked about heritage earlier. It's really critical, and we've identified sort of approvals as being a critical path from quite an early stage, and we've got a very significant approvals team led by Simon Corrigan, but we've got a full-time land access, environmental land access manager now working for us. We've got a full-time community relations manager working for us, and we've got a specialist heritage native title consultant as well. And that really culminated in the first really important announcement, was this land access agreement signed only a handful of weeks ago. Flew out to Kalgoorlie. We have very regular engagement with the Gagara people, and we're really looking for a win-win relationship here with this group. We're exploring a number of options above and beyond just a royalty-based incentive, but I think there's some real opportunities to involve the group to be part of the project prop as it develops. Next, please. DFS. I touched on the DFS being underway. We're using Wave to sort of oversee a number of those work programs, but we do have in-house capability. We've got a full-time metallurgist process manager working with the company. We also have mine engineering capability. Joel Van Annen, who's come off the core lithium project. So we do have that in-house capability as well on the owners team. So we are looking to progress this feasibility study through to the end of the year. It's a significant work stream, and obviously the metallurgy is a core part of that. We think our flow sheet will be whole of ore flow. We're really focused on recoveries. We think we can get some really high recoveries. I touched on some of these organic flotation agents which could be available to us from our partners in China. Some of the early works we've done show really, really great potential. Our metallurgy is clean, really clean. We don't have a high level of gangue mineralisation. The iron content in the ore is very low. Most of the iron's in the waste rock, and we think using ore sorting will help separate a lot of that high iron waste rock, which is highly magnetic as well. Next. Just touching on the ore sorting, we did complete an initial trial. This was a proof of concept trial earlier this year, tremendously successful. We had a sort of a 90% increase in the head grade using the ore sorting. We won't use this on all of the blasted ore through the run of mine, but what we're looking to do, the larger pegmatites will be processed through a primary jaw crush. And what this technology allows us to do is mine some of those more marginal, thinner pegmatite lenses that have a sharp contact with the waste rock. So this will certainly increase the throughput, we feel. So stay tuned. We've got another significant commercial scale trial. It'll be 150 metric tons an hour using the Steiner machine. And we've got great visual control with our pegmatite and our waste rock, and that gives us a big advantage. Not all lithium deposits have this advantage. Often you have the lithium mineralisation blending into the wall rock. We have a very sharp contact, so we think this technology is going to stack up really well, and absolutely will be part of our commercial flow sheet going forward. Next. So we have two projects, our Marble Bar Lithium project. I touched on the infrastructure earlier. I mean, this is probably no better project from an infrastructure perspective. I mean, we're drilling pegmatites at the moment 30 metres off the Marble Bar Road, and Marble Bar Road, as you can see there, runs through our 10-minute package, runs all the way to Port Hedland. So it's about 160 kilometres up the highway. So we don't have to spend any money on infrastructure really, because it's all there. Again, this is an outcropping spodumene-bearing pegmatite. We came to market with this asset in May of 2021 as part of our IPO. It was about a 10.5 million tonne resource at 1%. And on the back of last year's exploration, we grew this resource up to 18 million tonnes. We think there's more to come. We are pursuing next slide, we'll just touch on that. We're pursuing a 20,000 metre exploration campaign this year, but there are also some gold and some base metal targets that we'll explore. Next, please. You can see here the land package. So the image on the right just shows you, firstly, a tenement package in green, and then it shows you some of the exploration targets. So that Archer deposit, we've got about 18 million tonnes of lithium resource sitting in that particular part of the Goldilocks zone. But as you can see, there's a number of additional sort of pegmatite corridors that we'll look to explore. We did a lot of mapping last year that suggests that we have opportunities in some of these other corridors. And well to the north, we have a gold asset as well that we'll look to explore. So there's very strong interest in this project, particularly from the Europeans. Your listeners may have heard there's a lot happening in Port Hedland, or in Port Hedland potentially becoming a lithium processing hub. And given this project's only 160 kilometres from Port Hedland, I think we're in a very good position there to explore those options further. Next, please. So as I said, the drill rigs are spinning at this particular site, 20,000 metre RC drill campaign, and then of course we'll test some of those gold targets, our Twin Bones gold target to the north as well. Next, please. So just finishing off, these are really the key milestones, a lot happening, and really my big focus as MD has been building a team that allows us and puts us in the best position to be able to meet these milestones, which are significant. You know, exploration across both projects, and that's a combination of RC and diamond. They'll run through to the back end of this year. Importantly, we've got a significant cash reserve that if the resource extension continues to the northeast, we can continue to chase it. We've got a DFS and an ore reserve for Manna that'll be released this year as well. The MET test is ongoing, metallurgical test work, and we also have a DSO PFS, which we'll look to announce in Q3. We are looking at some downstream lithium studies. Some of the partners we're in discussions with are very interested in terms of taking our concentrate all the way through to lithium hydroxide periodically. We're soon to announce an additional resource upgrade, and there'll be another one the first half of next year, which combines the 50,000 metre drilling campaign at Manna. Approvals tracking really well. We're ahead of the curve in terms of both environmental and native title approvals. So all going well, we're positioning for a final investment decision around the middle of next year, and then from there it's about an 18-month build out. The beauty about spodumene concentrate, as your listeners would know, it's a low risk from a capital deployment perspective. So lots to look forward to. First production in 2026, all going well. So that's it for me, David. I think I've got one final slide there, but if you just flick it over. Probably the next one is probably can finish off on, because people are everything, and we've got a great team. We're working really close with our local communities, and always like to finish on this slide because we're a company that's very experienced and we want to do the right thing by the communities in which we're operating. So thanks very much for your time. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Ron. Great presentation. Clearly quality projects in a tier 1 jurisdiction really stand out. I asked the question of the previous two presenters, and it's been asked again here. How do you acquire such high quality advanced assets in a tier 1 jurisdiction?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think like any good business deal, it's all about timing, but also having a team that recognises the opportunities. I think the first project we picked up and we brought to market, we acquired those tenements of BCI Minerals, our Marble Bar Lithium project, and we then explored those with a really experienced geological team. I mean, our geos, we've got 4 project geologists, an exploration geologist, and of course our GM geology. I mean, we've got 80 years of lithium experience across our geology team. That matters. You know, we're not looking for gold here. We've got a team that knows how to hunt spodumene in particular. And bear in mind, there's a number of lithium minerals that will come through these ore bodies, and spodumene is what everyone's chasing. We've got 2 projects that have spodumene dominant lithium mineralisation. So we're really lucky there, having that expertise. And then, of course, our Manna project, we delivered the maiden inferred mineral resource on that project after acquiring an 80% joint venture interest from Breaker. Now, Breaker's a wonderful company, but their focus is gold. They're not looking to develop lithium. We are. So that was just good timing. We picked up that asset December of 2021, that 80% interest. We delivered that maiden inferred mineral resource of 9.9 million tonnes in February last year, and then grew that sort of 250% up to sort of 33 million tonnes at back end of last year. So yeah, a combination of good timing, right place, right time, but also having a really experienced team that recognise the opportunity.
Now, one question I think is a really good one. When you came to market, you had a number of goals you set out to achieve. They're very clear. The prospectus was very clear on what you wanted to achieve. Mm-hmm. Are you surprised by how quickly you achieved them and how quickly you probably had to reset those goals?
That's a really good point you make, and yeah, we were. I mean, even just looking at sort of the near-term targets, the opportunity to grow the resource, to have a JORC compliant resource, was our first and foremost goal. Because once you have an initial starting position, obviously there's opportunities to grow. I think the focus really was building a team that had that capability, David, and I think all successful businesses, the common thread or the common theme is team. And you can have the best resource in the ground, but unless you've got a great team that has the ability, the experience, and the knowledge to unlock that resource, you're going to be quite significantly challenged. So we've had a mandate from the start to get the best people. And once you get the best people, the good news comes. That's the view we've had, and certainly that's proven to be the case for us.
Now, on a personal level, you have been involved in the lithium space. You could argue well before it was cool, well before everyone else was jumping on the bandwagon. For you, when did the penny drop that lithium was the commodity that you should be focusing on it, and why?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I'll 100% agree with you. I was involved in lithium when it was completely non-sexy. Lithium was an industrial mineral when I was working at Talison. I was selling spodumene to China for $250, $300 a ton. And I still remember the first time we got a sale at $300 a ton. It was a lot of fist pumping and celebrating. Mind you, our cash cost back then was far lower as well, so it's all relative. But it was really, I reckon, 2014. 2014 was when Albemarle made a bid for Talison, and we were actually TSX listed at that time. We couldn't get any exposure with APEC investors in terms of lithium. It was far too niche and boutique back then, so we had to run across to Toronto to get any sort of public exposure. But then when Albemarle was actually Rockwood Holdings at the time, made the bid for us, that really sort of got me thinking that there's a big future here. Albemarle, as we all know, is the biggest lithium company in the world, and they acquired the company ultimately in a joint venture together with Tianqi. But yeah, 2014 was what I thought. This industry has legs, and this is the first move of many. So that was probably the time where I thought, yeah, this is a market. This is an industry, a metal for the next 100 years, not just the next 10.
Well, as you say, timing's everything. So right place, right time, and right acknowledgement of where things were going to go. And full credit to you and as you say, the wider team for what you've been able to achieve. Last couple of questions to come through. How long do you think it'll take to complete the 50,000 metre drilling campaign at Mana?
Yeah, we've got quite a clear target. Obviously, building out that exploration camp and making sure we've got a full-time cook. Previously, our geos would be out in the field with the drillers and then come back late in the day and have to cook for themselves. We've got an industrial kitchen out there. We've got a full-time cook now, so our geos can just focus on hunting lithium. With 5 or 6 drills in play, we hope to have the campaign finished by the end of this year. Now is actually the best time to be drilling. Winter going through spring is the best time. It's the driest time out in Kalgoorlie. So time is perfect for us. And I think with 5 or 6 drill rigs spinning, I think a 4 to 5 month campaign is completely realistic.
And have you stated an exploration target at Mana?
Oh, look, of course, we've got an internal target. I can't share that publicly at this stage, but it's, we're looking for a sizable increase here. We want our tonnes, and we think this project and this asset has serious legs. We just need to drill it out and prove it.
Last question, and not to divert the attention, clearly focus is on lithium, but the rare earth potential, a bit of a surprise. What does it mean in terms of focus?
Yeah, it's a great surprise to have. And I remember when our geos first alerted me to it. I guess my biggest concern of that was how investors going to take this news, and we wanted to do some work to really prove that we had something significant, something that had potential. So I'll put the team, to work to really consolidate the position and overlay with all the geochemical, geophysical work that was done. But of course, we've got something that's meaningful and absolutely material. But our focus 100% is still developing lithium. Our team is here to develop a lithium project. Now, if we have a rare earth project that comes along and proves to be significant, we're in a wonderful position. Just think about the location of our asset. It's another critical minerals project. Our government, both state and federal, is heavily focused on supporting and developing companies that have critical minerals. and to have 2 critical minerals on one tenement, that's remarkable. We're not surprised. There's some other interesting things on these tenements that will come to bear in due course as well. But we do need to drill test these rare earth targets, and we will have a separate team drill testing the rare earth targets once drilling gets underway. But certainly the 2 projects completely separated, separate names, separate budgets, and separate project teams as well. So we certainly are mindful of our focus here, which is still and will remain lithium.
Well, like you say, 2 quality projects in a tier 1 jurisdiction, exceptional teams driving them both forward, and some key milestones clearly ahead of you. Goals have been achieved and new goals have been set. So we look forward to following the story as it develops. Ron, thanks for your time.
My pleasure, David. Thank you.
As I said in my intro, the purpose of this webinar series is to give you the opportunity to engage directly with companies that are on your watch list, and to give you ideas of companies you might want to potentially add to your watch list so you can follow them in the future. So look at your watch list and let us know if there are any companies on there you want to hear from, or let us know about companies you've been thinking about adding to your watch list, and we'll get them to present to you in future. Thank you to the presenters for making the time to present, and for you for watching. We'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. Have a